Hey guys, it's time for another episode of Below the Iceberg, the one and only podcast where we talk to real life 2 Comma Club winners. Whether you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, wannabe entrepreneur, or you've been in business for a while, you're sure to pick up tiny tidbits of actionable advice from these million-dollar entrepreneurs. Now, if you don't know what a 2 Comma Club winner is, it's where they've built one funnel inside the ClickFunnels software and sold $1 million through just that one funnel, which is absolutely a fantastic achievement. Now, in this episode, I am absolutely ecstatic to be talking with a young man who's catapulted himself literally in under 4 years to over 30 million in sales. He is our first 25x award winner from ClickFunnels on Below the Iceberg. Now, this week's guest is Tanner Chidester, and we chatted to find out how it all started for him, the struggles he's overcome, and how he went from an Instagram model to a multi-millionaire business coach. Let's dive in and find out more. So, welcome, Tanner, to Below the Iceberg.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
It's so awesome that you've taken some time out of your day to come and chat with me today. I am super excited.
Oh, me too. I'm glad you're excited. It makes me excited.
So first off, I want to congratulate you on your many 2 Comma Club awards.
Thank you.
I can see them on the back of your wall. So how many have you actually got?
We got six regular ones, and then we got the 10x and whatever the other one's called, 25x or something. So yeah.
25x.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
That is awesome. You've got to be our first one on Below the Iceberg with the 25x.
Yeah, I think we're eligible for the next one, but I have to check. But yeah, it's been cool. I think Russell's really smart in doing that. It's like one way that I guess entrepreneurs can brag a little bit and stuff. So, it's how I got into internet marketing was ClickFunnels. So I'm really grateful for them.
Yeah. So what I like to do with my guests is I like to go on your social profiles and do a little bit of investigating.
Sure.
And check out your stats. And then it's good for our listeners to see what people can achieve with big followings and small followings.
Sure. Yeah.
So this is what I found out about you. So Facebook followers, about 17,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instagram, over 300,000.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, about 11,000 subscribers. And then TikTok, 70.3 thousand followers.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a Facebook group as well. How many? I didn't check that one out. How many have you got?
A little over 14,000, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So do you want to tell our listeners exactly what it is that you do?
Sure. Man, it's like getting harder and harder as I get older.
You're still young.
Yeah. I mean, in short, the main thing I do is, we help people, build and scale online. And I would say the 2 biggest demographics we work with is we work with tons of trainers. And that's kind of how I started, was in the fitness niche. And so that's kind of how I kind of started building my name up, so to speak. And then we also have general business owners, which really to us is just anyone not in fitness. So kind of those 2 demographics. All
right. Okay. So Instagram's your biggest following. So did you start with Instagram?
Yeah, I did. I actually I had a strictly fitness Instagram, and I got that to around, I want to say like 50,000 followers. And then I actually started a brand new Instagram. And, the biggest way I've grown it is just like through shoutouts. But I mean, the biggest thing for me is not necessarily the metric. It's, the leads we get and the sales we get from it. And so that's always kind of the metric I look at is just how much money am I investing, and then how much traffic do I get, and then how much of an ROI, right? And so that might be a little more than you asked for, but yeah.
That's cool. So when did you actually get your first 2 Comma Club?
Oh, shoot. I want to say that was like 2018, I think. So it took me about a year. Of living in a dungeon and just working all day. But yeah, that was probably the most rewarding. I mean, it gets a little less rewarding as you make more and more. So that was like the biggest one for me because of like what it took for me to get there.
So really, so you've done all of those in 4 years then?
About 4 years, yeah.
That's a massive achievement, isn't it, really?
I appreciate it. Yeah, it felt the first one felt the biggest though. I'm telling you. Like the first one's the biggest.
So when you got that first one, were you trying to hit the 2 comma club, or did it just happen?
No, I mean, I was just trying to hit 10,000 a month. I mean, it was bad at the time for me. And so it just scaled really fast. And then I basically hit it in a year. And so it wasn't, I mean, I wanted to get there. My goal was to become a millionaire before 27. And I didn't really start having any success till I was 25 and a half. So, you know, I guess you could say part of that was the motivation, but it was really, I just didn't want to be broke. And ClickFunnels was just what I used to get there. And, you know, the rest is kind of history, I guess. So,
so when you hit that $1 million in sales, did you have a party? Did you celebrate?
you know, I didn't. I didn't. Because I was still living at home. I was still living at home with my parents, because I actually moved back home to live with my parents. And so it was funny because my parents would say, people would ask, you know, like, why, you know, how's your son doing? Like, he's back home. They're like, oh, he's doing really well, actually. But I just got so busy with the business that I didn't want to take time to move. And so I actually was there for about a little bit longer after I'd done that before I'd actually moved back out again. But yeah, no, I think I had dinner with my parents or something, but it wasn't anything crazy enough.
All right, okay. So what type of funnel did you win with on that first award?
Oh, it was awful. It was actually a really ugly funnel. It was just a VSL funnel. But kind of the biggest thing that I guess kind of like my cheat was I was running all my ads to an opt-in page, and what I did to start getting success is I just ran it to Messenger. That was right when the Messenger feature came out, right around there. And so I started following up with every single lead because I was so upset because my ads were not working. And so I literally just was like, and I started messaging everyone, and then they started converting like crazy. And so even though they were like going through the funnel, like without that follow-up process, it would have never converted at the same level. And so that was kind of how I got, you know, away with like bad funnels, so to speak. So
did you have a Messenger bot, or was it just sent to Messenger and you were chatting with them?
Yeah, so it was kind of both. So like that initial message would be an automation. So they click the ad and it'd be an automation, but then I actually myself would manually go in and follow up with every single person. And that was kind of how I scaled so fast, because I think it's that just personal touch, like and it's just willing to do what other people are not. And so I was so frustrated that I started doing it. I was like, oh my gosh, like working. So I just kept doing it over and over and over again. It like changed everything for me. It was like a huge deal. Yeah.
So what were you selling? What were you selling on that one?
Yeah, just fitness. It was just getting in shape, so like losing weight, building muscle.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I was actually like, I had done professional modeling. I've been in football my whole life. So my first, you know, I started out not doing any consulting whatsoever. In fact, I didn't like consultants. Like I had like a huge pet peeve with them. But as that scaled, you know, a lot of trainers, that's kind of how I got in the fitness industry. A lot of trainers started asking me like, dude, like, how are you doing that? And I was like, like, I don't really want to do that, until I was a young guy and I started seeing like, wow, there's like all this extra potential. And that's actually what finally got me into it. It wasn't my intention to begin with. So.
All right. Okay. So let's do a little rewind then.
Sure.
So let's take you back to your childhood.
Yeah.
It's not that long ago because you're still quite young.
I know. It's like, as I'm getting older. Yeah.
So what was it like when you were a child? What was life like?
Yeah. So I was raised in a pretty religious household, a Mormon household, LDS, you know, however you want to describe it. My dad would be kind of similar to what you would consider like a preacher. And I was the oldest boy. I had 2 older sisters, and then we have 2 younger girls and 2 younger boys. So 7 kids.
Oh, wow.
And my dad was working on a teacher salary. So as we were getting older, you know, he only gave us our bare necessities. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we never got more than we needed. And then they would work us a lot, like, you know, mow the neighbors' lawns, or like go clean the high schools. Like my dad like would teach in these high schools and these colleges, and we would go clean them, like all of the kids, and we're like sitting there cleaning so we could make extra money. I remember my dad would do power washing and stuff. So as a kid, I just thought it was normal. I hated it, but that's just what I thought was normal. And so I actually am really grateful for my dad now, because when I went out and tried to venture off on my own, I had a really crazy work ethic, I think. And I didn't realize at the time. I just thought that was how everyone lived. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were a kid?
Yeah, I just want to play American football. Yeah,
Right,
I just want to be a professional athlete. And so until 22, that's kind of how I attacked business now. Is what I did then is I just lifted weights and I ran, and I lifted weights and I ran. That was my entire childhood. That's what I love to do. Yeah.
So did you go to college?
I did for a little bit. Yeah, I dropped out with about a year left. Yeah.
All right. Okay. And what did you do?
I was a petroleum engineer.
All right. Okay. So what made you drop out?
I just realized I didn't want to do that. It was easy for me to go, I think, when I was playing football, because that was a requirement, and I still wanted to have good grades because I just was around a lot of athletes that if they didn't go professional, they were kind of done for, so to speak. But I sat down with the mentor, and he's like, well, what's your goals? I was like, well, sports is over. I really want to make a lot of money. And he's like, well, dude, you're not going to make more than this with that job, even though it's a 6-figure salary. And I was like, well, how do you start a business? Like I don't understand anything. And he basically convinced me to leave school, and he mentored me for free, basically from his home garage for like a year and a half.
All right. Okay. So how did you find this mentor then?
Yeah, well, so he's a good friend of my dad's, and at the time they were trying to get me back into church. And so he kind of made a deal with me. I broke this deal, and I do feel bad for it, but he was like, hey, look, I'll show you how to do business stuff if you kind of come back to church more. And I was like, yeah. I definitely did not keep up my end of the deal. He did. So, bless his heart. But I learned a lot. And he is actually married to one of Russell Brunson's cousins. And so he knew all about ClickFunnels. That's how I got introduced to it. I had no idea what this stuff was. So that was my introduction.
All right. So he introduced you to ClickFunnels. Mm-hmm. So then what happened?
Yeah. So I dropped out with a year left, and everyone thought I was stupid, including myself. And I started just going to his garage every day. And we built out an entire product over a year called the Rapid Muscle System. And so I built it like upsells, downsells, the pages, the emails, and I didn't know anything. And so this was I learned more in that year and a half than I'd ever learned in school or, university. And I didn't make any money, but those were the building blocks, I think, for my success, because I just didn't know any of that stuff. I mean, there was no courses, there's nothing to teach you that stuff. So it was mind-blowing to me. And I was like, people just do this and make money? He's like, yeah, man. And I'm like, man, they don't teach any of this in school. This is crazy. And so that's what I did for a year and a half, is I just went to his office every day and built out a product.
All right. Okay. So were you building that out in ClickFunnels then?
Yeah, I was using ClickFunnels. Yeah. That's how I got into the whole thing. Yeah.
So what was his business then?
Yeah. So he actually has had some, I guess, various businesses, but the one at the time, it was actually an MLM, and it was called Send Out Cards. And he was the number 2 guy in the whole company. He had done some other businesses before, but he was like, hey man, I'm tired of the game. I'm just doing this, but I can show you what to do. And so he was actually a huge person in Send Out Cards, which is basically, it's an MLM, but it's literally how it sounds. They send cards to people. And so that's what he did, and he taught other people how to do it, and he was really good at it. So
all right. Okay. So when did you start your Instagram channel?
I want to say, shoot, I didn't really start it until after, I want to say maybe right after college, because that's when I really got into modeling. So I want to say maybe 21, or no later than 22, but probably 21-ish. And that's when I was starting to do all the fitness modeling. That's how I originally grew my account, because there was just a bunch of people wanting to look at me in my shirt off. So I eventually had to start a new account, because I'm like, man, no one here is going to buy my stuff. Just a bunch of people want to date me. But that's how I started. Yeah, about 21. Yeah.
So when you built your funnel out with this dude in the garage, then what did you do then? Did you do organic first, or did you run ads, or what did you do?
Yeah, no. So I was completely broke, and that was my big downfall, because I was selling a $47 product. I'm like, dude, like, how do people get this thing to work? Like, this is terrible. Like, no one's buying my stuff. And even if they did buy my stuff, I couldn't pay for anything. And so that was how he had made his money. He had done a lot of low ticket funnels. Right. And so I actually didn't make any money. And I eventually, at this time I was turning about, 24-ish. And I've been working with him from 22 to like 23 and a half. I was getting ready to turn 24. So I moved up to Utah, just kind of like, I'm getting older. I need to live my life. And I started doing door-to-door sales, and I was working as a server, and I kept trying to get this business to work, and it wasn't working. And I was so frustrated, and I'd call him probably 5 times over that duration. I said, hey, dude, I'm going to quit and go back to school. Like, I got a year left. And he's like, dude, don't quit. He's like, if you quit and you go get that job, he's like, you're never going to start your business. He's like, because you're going to meet a cute girl, and she's not going to want you to go backwards, and she's going to like your salary. Don't do it. I was like, all right. So I go and I start doing door-to-door sales, because I thought in my head, hey, if I make this money, my business will not work. Because that's what I told myself, that's why it wasn't working. So I go do door-to-door sales. I make okay money, but nothing great, maybe 10K a month. And I was working, crazy hours. And I get to the close
what were you selling?
Security alarms.
Right,
security
okay.
alarms. Yeah. And it was tough. That was one of the hardest. I think to this day, that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It was so hard, because it was uncomfortable. It was hot. We were out there 8 to 10 hours a day. People are cussing at you. It's rough. It was rough.
It gives you good grounding though, door-to-door sales, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. It taught me, oh yeah, you get real good. Yeah, you get real good, because you're selling them stuff they don't want. And so when they finally want your stuff, they're like, wow, this is great. This is easy. So yeah. And so at this point, I'm about 25. And I remember I was like, man, I've been doing this about 3 years now, and I haven't gone anywhere. So I'm going to give myself till the end of the year. And then if not, I'm going back to school, because I just felt like a loser. I just felt people are like, you got time. And I was like, dude, I do not got time. Like, this is not working. So I was actually scrolling on Facebook before we go out to air, and I saw an ad, and it was how to build an online fitness business. I was like, dude, like, I could do that. So I get on the call, and they take all the money I have. I've never been on a high ticket sales call. It was like $5,000. I had like $2,000 in my bank account, super broke. And I was sweating. I wish you guys could hear the call, because it was bad. Like, I was just like, dude, like, I don't know, like, all that stuff.
Who was it? Can you remember who it was?
Yeah, it was actually, I think the program was called LifeChanging Cam Academy, and it was from Sterling Griffin, but he doesn't even coach anymore. But it was Sterling Griffin. Yeah, if that rings a bell. And anyways, I do that, and I get in the group, and I don't watch any of the videos or anything. I'm just like, okay, so like basically you just message people and like get them on a call and raise my price, right? And they're like, yeah, like sell it for 1,500 plus. I was like, all right, cool, got it. And like, I'd done sales for the last 8 months. I was like, I got this. So I just go and I start messaging people on my IG, and like I make 10K in a week. And I just remember it was such a great feeling, but I was so disappointed, because I was like, man, that's all I had to do for the last 3 years. Like, what the, I just felt like, what? Like, I was so close. And then from there, just everything started taking off. So I think it's ironic, because I say like I wasted that time, but the irony is probably if I hadn't gone through those things, I wouldn't have made those sales as fast as I did. I wouldn't be as good as I am at those things now. So it was probably a blessing in disguise, to be honest.
Yeah. So what were you selling? Did you make the course already, or was it a one-to-one thing, or what was it?
Yeah. So I would do, it was one-to-one fitness coaching. So basically what I would sell them on is I'd say, hey, look, I'm going to, teach you how to eat in a way that's sustainable for you, teach you how to work out in a way that you like. And then I'll show you how to do it for the rest of your life, so you don't have to, keep paying for trainers over and over again. And that would really get them like, oh, wow, like, okay, that sounds great. And then I would sell it on average. I started at 1,500, but after the first couple of deals, I was like, all right, like, yeah, they want this. Like, I'm going to jack this up, right? Like it's a good deal. And then on average, like I sold it for about $3,200 for 4 months. And so it was about $800 a month. And that was kind of the sweet spot I found, where I could get, pretty good lead quality and clients, but I wouldn't charge so much that it would just make it the hardest sales call of my life. So
So where were they coming from? So they were on your Instagram. Were you
Yeah.
putting posts out telling people to message you, or what were you doing?
I really wasn't. What I did is I just started messaging all my followers, right? And at this time I'd built up over the last 4 years, I hadn't ever sold anything. I just posted a bunch of modeling pictures. So, my following was just from that. And so I started messaging people, and that's how I got my first followers. Now, once that started running out, or I felt like, dude, like this isn't going to last forever because my following had kind of stagnated at about 50,000. I started doing what's called shoutouts. And shoutouts are a mixed bag. They're great because it gets you a lot of leads, but obviously not all the leads are perfect. And so it just depends on who you talk to and what you want to do with that. But that's how I kept going. And then those actually stopped working after a certain point. And so I started turning to Facebook ads and kind of doing that same methodology. Because what I thought was like, well, Facebook ads, I'm running to an opt-in page. Why don't I just try to replicate what I'm doing on Instagram? And that was when the Messenger feature came out. And I started doing that, and it just went bonkers. And then once I figured out paid traffic, I really didn't post for about a year. I just ran shout outs and messaged my current followers. I didn't post any content. And the reason was I was so busy with sales calls and messaging. I was like, dude, like, I don't need content. Like, these people are like ready to buy. Like, I just need to take as many sales calls as I can. So that's actually like with our clients, we try to make sure they have a good balance. Like, you can post some content, but that's not the most important thing. It's like, we got to make sure you're getting enough messages and, sales calls in. So
do you want to, if anybody doesn't know what shout outs is, how does that work? What do you do?
Yeah. So an average shout out, you'd go to a page. Typically what I will tell my clients to do is, find a page that's got 1 million plus followers, and it's going to be a theme. So just because, we're talking about fitness in this example, let's say I go to a page that's like fitness and nutrition, or it's like, vegan eating, or, keto diet, or whatever it is that is more ideal for your avatar. And then you go to them, you'll just DM them their rates. You're like, hey, how much is your rates for a post? And, they'll be like, oh, it's X amount. And we always will ask for their demographics to make sure there's a lot of US based customers or wherever you're located. We'll usually ask for story views to make sure that they got decent engagement, right? And it's not just a bunch of like, spam or bots or whatever. And then if those two things are in alignment, we'll pay them. They will post like, hey, follow at Tanner, at his handle. They come to our page, and then we'll start hitting them with retargeting ads, and we'll start, starting conversations, or they'll, message me. And that's really how I started. I mean, that was like, and it's super, super cheap. So like, a Facebook lead costs anywhere between, 10, 15, $20. You could get shout out leads or followers for like 50 cents. And so it's usually a lot more cost effective. And, some of my clients, like they crush with that. And it's easier than running ads because they don't have to have a funnel and, pixels and all these other things. So hopefully that answers.
Yeah, that's cool. So they charge you just one price for shout out?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to vary per page, because this page might charge 100 or 240, but yeah, it's just, they usually charge you per post, or you can buy a bundle, and then you just have to decide if it's worth it. And really at the beginning, you're testing. You got to be like, oh, I paid this page, I got 3 followers. Like I'm never paying them again. Oh, I paid them, I got 100. That was a good deal. Like I paid $100, I got 100. That's $1 per person. And then you just go through those people and you engage, right? Or whoever views your story, you engage, or your likes, your comments. Like, it's just most people, that's where they miss the boat, is they wait for people to come to them. And I've always been like, no, we got to go to them, because door to door, like that's how I sold. I was like, I'm like, yeah, you need this. And so that's really served me well. And that's really what direct marketing is you got to kind of be the aggressor versus they're coming more to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, cool. So when you started the Facebook ads, did you do them yourself, or did you go to an agency?
I did. It's hilarious because I have an agency now, but I tell people, like, unless you're doing, probably around, 20,000 a month, and you really just don't want to do it, you're better off running them yourself, because if the agency fee is $5,000 and you're only spending $3,000, you can make $5,000 of mistakes yourself, and you probably still get more leads than the agency spending your $3,000, And so that's at least my opinion. So like I didn't hire anyone until I was doing about $20,000 a month of spend. And I just did it in the most logical way I could think of, which was, what's the minimum I'm willing, or the maximum I'm willing to pay for a lead? And then I just did ad sets with that number. And if it didn't get a lead, I would turn it off. And then I would just duplicate it and do different interests. I ran my ads like that up to like 20,000 a month. So it wasn't anything complicated.
That's super cool. So what about messenger bots then? When did you add those into the mix?
Yeah, so I think I added them as soon as they came out. So right when I was trying to figure out ads, I was about 6 months into it, and messenger bots came out, and everyone's like, oh, these are going to change everything, and da-da-da. I didn't know if they were or not, but I was like, well, let me run my ads to it and see what happens. And so when I did, I just was hoping the automations would push them through, because that's what I thought. And when it didn't work, I was getting so mad. I was like, dude, what the, like, I'm going to go talk to these people. And I just started like having combos, and then I started booking all these calls, and I was like, dude, and I started making money. I was like, yeah, like who cares about the funnel? Like, I'm just going to have conversations with these people. And that's how I scaled my business, because I could not get my regular funnels to work without messaging people. They just would not convert no matter what it seemed for me to try. So.
Okay. So how long did you stick with that fitness until you moved into the next stage?
Yeah, probably about a year and a half. And then I started having all these trainers just like ask me, because I got my ClickFunnels award. And then people were like, dude, like that guy does fitness. Like he doesn't do business coaching, like da-da-da. And I was like, guys, like, I do not want to get into business coaching. Like, I was like adamant against it. But people just kept asking, and I was like, dude, shoot. Like, and I was like, how much are you willing to pay? And they were like, oh, I'll pay you like 10 grand. I was like, 10 grand? Because, I was getting $800 a month for fitness. And so I was still good money, but I was like, dang. And so that's really how it started off. And then as that grew, I started getting people outside of fitness who are like, well, can you like help me here? And so that wasn't my plan. It just kind of fell on my lap. And, in hindsight, I think if I'd been more skilled, I wouldn't have had to do that, because I kind of came to a crossroad with fitness where I wasn't sure how to keep scaling it. I got to about 150,000 a month, and it was like kind of stuck. But it's all worked out. It's been like a huge blessing. So, but yeah, that's how I got into it. Yeah.
So why were you adamant that you didn't want to do the coaching?
Well, man, it's tough now, because like I understand it's one of those things, until you're doing it, it's hard to know like how hard it is, but I just had a lot of bad experiences, and like I would pay, and I would like, I felt I was doing everything they said. Like I was like their best client. That's at least how I felt. And so when I didn't get results, I was like, man, like I play Division I football. Like I'm a petroleum engineer. Like I work like 16 hours a day. Like if I can't do it, like I know most of your clients, like they're probably struggling. That's at least what I thought. And so I was working 16 hours a day, making sales for free, messaging like crazy. And I was literally getting arthritis in my fingers. It was like funny now. It was not funny at the time. And the doctor's like, dude, like you got to like lay off. Like your muscles are tired. Like stop. And, but I was taking all the money I made, and I was giving it to coaches. And so now my parents are like, dude, like you're busting your butt. And then like, you're paying these guys 10K, 15K, 5 grand. And like, then you're not getting anything out of it. And so it was really hard for me at the time, because I didn't know if it was me or if it was the methodology. And I was just like, no, like, it's gotta be me. It's gotta be me. Like, I know like this works for other people. But when I started getting success, it was basically doing the opposite of what I've been told. And it's still great learning. Like I don't regret it at all. But at the time when you're, a young broke kid, you're very angry, right? Like you just feel like, oh, like it's your fault and all this stuff. So I was like, F these guys, like I'm never going to do what they're doing, like da 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 da. And I think what kind of convinced me though is like kind of what I said to you is like other people were going to programs and struggling. And so I was like, I'm not perfect by any means, but I was like, you know what? They're better off with me if I can show them exactly what I did than if they pay someone else who's never built like a fitness business, right? Because I had these trainers like going to people like, dude, like he hasn't done that. Like he's had business success, but it was like hiring Michael Jordan to teach them golf. That's how I viewed it. And so that was how I justified it, at least. Like, that's how in my head I said, I'm the good guy, they're the bad guys, right? And as I matured, I've learned things are more gray than black and white, but at the time I was pretty young and upset. So
So when you started doing that, were you doing it one-to-one?
Yeah, it was 1-to-1, and then I would record the calls and I put them in my portal. And it was kind of funny because there used to be jokes when I was on the come up about how like bad the videos were in my portal. And it wasn't they were bad videos, but I would be like tank top, like coughing, just like, yeah, guys, like, because I was just grinding and I didn't like, I was like, it's good enough. Like, it's good enough. So me and my team actually, like this last year and a half, like we had to go back and like redo like the whole portal because there were people who like, it wasn't bad per se, but they're like, dude, like, it's like Tanner like coughing up a lung and stuff on the video. Like, can he do this when he's not sick or something? So that's how I did it. I just was really efficient. So I don't know if it was the best way to do it, but it was very, very efficient. That's how I moved so fast. And I've gotten like, a lot of awards so quickly just because it was just speed, 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 speed. And that's what that's my strength. And then I have, people who are better at operations and, making stuff look nice who assist me now. So
when did you start building your team out to help you then?
Oh man, when I just realized I couldn't handle anymore. So I think it was right around when I was doing about probably 60 or 70K a month, where I was working 16, 18 hours a day and I was messaging everyone. I was calling everyone. I was doing all the fulfillment. And so then I hired my brother. He started doing fulfillment. And then my next hire was a messenger. And then my third hire was a sales rep. And then I kept running the ads until we were doing and I ran my own ads until we were doing probably 300 a month. And then I hired it out finally. But those are my first 3 hires. 2 of them were my brothers. And then the other person, her name is Kim. She's been with me the entire ride. So she was there from the beginning. So yeah.
So are your brothers still with you now?
They are. Yeah, they are. Luckily, I'm probably harder on them than the rest of my team. And, a lot of people warned me against it. But luckily, I just think how our dad raised us, we just work really hard. And so it's worked out because if I get someone who works hard, it's like the rest usually takes care of itself. So.
Yeah, definitely. So your company now is called Elite CEOs, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
So did you get the 25K and the 10K with that business, with that coaching model?
Yeah. So the first couple million was strictly from fitness. And then after that, it started segueing more into the business. And I was running the businesses simultaneously until I realized like, I'm not good enough to be doing that. Like it's just because you basically have 2 teams and 2 operations. And so once the new business, started surpassing the fitness business, that's when I was like, this makes more sense logically for where I'm at, what's happening now. And that's kind of when I went all in on it.
All right. Okay. So what about COVID when that hit? How did that affect you? Did that boost you?
It did. Yeah, we crushed. And I feel bad for a lot of people because I know that wasn't the case, but I mean, it was built for my business. It was like how to build an online business. It's like COVID. It's like, so it fortunately, I mean, I think at the time, and one of my friends said this, he's like, when we're doing well, we take too much of the credit. And when we're doing bad, we take too much of the blame. And I think we peaked right when COVID hit. And so we had some gigantic months. I mean, massive. And we still do very well, but those were some of the biggest months I've ever had.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think's been your biggest hurdle that you've had to overcome so far?
Oh man. I think it's probably everyone's hurdle at a certain point. It's just building a great team. And it starts with yourself. The hard thing is like, as you become more experienced, you realize it's all about other people. And then when you can't assemble the team you want, or they're not doing what you want them to do, you always have to look inside and basically accept the fact that you're not the person you need to be yet. So that's been it's still hard to me for this day because I would say I have an ego. And so I'm always trying to kind of tame that ego. And it's something I'm always working on to try to become better because, I have a tendency to be like, oh, it's so easy, why can't you do it? And this and that. And I've gotten better, but when I get stressed, sometimes I'll fall back into that. And so I have to really check myself to just be a better leader because, people want to work for great leaders. They don't want to work for someone who's like a bad leader or they don't do what they're expecting them to do. And so I would say it's just building a great team because when I do it myself, like, yeah, I'm going to crush, but there's only so much work I can do. So.
Yeah. So how many have you got in your team now?
Oh man, I want to say it's around 70-ish.
Is it?
Yeah, it fluctuates up and down, but I mean, our payroll's getting there. It's up there. Like I notice a chunk goes out every month. But it's fun. We got a pretty good team, and I got some solid people around me. So it's always, it's always a journey. You're always trying to get better, but we got about 70. Yeah.
And are they all remote?
Yeah, right now they're all remote. We've had talks about, making it centralized, but I think I'm open to it. I guess it's been convenient, right? And so maybe the next step for me to continue to grow is do what's not convenient, but right now everyone is remote. Yeah.
And are they all in the US, or are they in different parts of the world?
Most are in the US. We also have a good chunk in Canada. We make jokes about Canada. I'm not sure how that came about, but we started getting a lot of people from Canada. And then we have a couple foreign, we have a couple foreign, but I would say most are USA or Canadian based. Yeah.
Okay. So thinking back now, has there ever been a time where you thought about giving up?
Oh yeah. Hundreds of times. I think the most prominent times though was when I wasn't having any type of success. And I've told people that. I said, hey, my opportunity cost if I had quit, which I almost did, would be well over $40 million to date. And that's crazy because as humans, we never think about that. We just think, well, this program is going to cost me this much. And like, this is going to do this, this is going to do that. But it's like, we never think about the upside and what we'll lose if we don't do it. And so, yeah, I was glad I had a good mentor, because he was like the only person who believed in me, including my family. My own family was kind of like, dude, you're kind of off your rocker. And he would, when I would get really low, I would call him and he'd just be like, hey bro, like, I know, but he's like, it's going to pass. He's like, you have all the intangibles. Like, I know I tell you that, like, you can do it. And I would just like, suck it up. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And, another 3 or 4 months would go by and I call him again. And he just kind of kept me on. So when I finally hit success, like I'm eternally grateful to him, because without him, I don't think I'd be here.
So people who don't have people haven't got anybody to talk to,
yeah,
it's going to be a lot more difficult than if you've got somebody on your side keeping you going.
Sure. I mean, I think for sure. I mean, I don't think you have to have someone, but I think it helps. And I think even if it's just someone who like supports you, that helps. I think that's also why sometimes coaching programs are helpful, because you're around other people who are going the same direction as you. And it's hard when everyone just, you're not having success. And then on top of that, everyone's like, you're dumb. That's stupid. Why are you doing that? That's like, it's not working, and it's hard, because even if you're very resilient, eventually you're like, I mean, dude, like they got a point. Like I'm spending, 16, 18 hours a day, and I have a really terrible side job to make, pay my bills, and it's not working. And so for me, I was stepping away from what I thought. I was like, man, I could be making 125 grand a year, and I'm making 36 a year, and I'm working this job that doesn't make me anything. And, as you get older, it gets harder because, people start judging you more. And, like I couldn't take girls on dates. I had a crappy apartment. I wasn't proud of my car. And, they're like, yeah, what do you do? And I was like, yeah, like, I got a business. And they're like, oh, what else do you do? Like, yeah, like I work at Olive Garden. And, it's ego. And so I'm glad I was able to kind of like push that aside, but it's hard, especially being a former athlete, because that's where all my like self-worth was in. And so it was hard to go from like being like this superstar athlete that everyone admired to like, yeah, like you're not that important. So.
Okay. So apart from all the awards that you got hanging on the back of your wall, what do you think's been your biggest achievement?
Oh man. Like, I think the biggest blessing for me is like being able to help my family. I'm actually not the biggest fan. I'm not a fan, but sometimes like I'm not the biggest fan of like Grant Cardone, but right before I started having some success, I read his book 10X, and there was like a quote in there that said something like, it's your duty to take care of your family, and you're the one who has to do it. You can't expect anyone else to do it. And I just remember growing up, like we weren't poor per se, but we never had more than enough. And I just like didn't want to live that way when I grew up, where it was always like paycheck to paycheck, and I didn't want my family to worry. And so I kind of took that upon myself to like kind of lead the way. And so I think I'm most proud of the fact I've been able to help my family by giving them jobs that also benefits me. But it's like, if they're willing to do the work, I can benefit and bless their life. And so it just gives me kind of some comfort to know that they're going to be taken care of because they're working for me. And so that's probably like my biggest accomplishment that actually means the most, you know, the awards or whatever, but that probably is what means the most to me.
That's really nice. And how do they feel? How do they feel working as their brother's the boss?
It depends on the day. I'm pretty hard on them just because I think it's two parts. Like, I know what they are capable of. And then I think the other part is I don't ever want my team to think I'm favoring my family. And so I push them extremely hard because I'll do it in front of the team if I have to, because I want them to know, like, I'll treat everyone the same.
Yeah.
So they're grateful. I know they'd say that, but I definitely, some days they probably don't like me very much, but you know, I told them when they came into the business, I said, look, like, I'll help you, but you got to do the work. And I'm not just going to give you a handout because you're my brother. And they've done that. And so it's worked out really well. I would say it's rare though. So most people watching this, like, usually working with your family does not work out, but it has for us. So I'm blessed. You know, we've been very lucky. So
that's really good. So what about, do you have a morning routine that you do?
Yes, I do. It's either one of two things. I either wake up and I immediately go to the gym and then I'll come back and I'll start working, or I will get up and I will start working and then I'll go to the gym. And it may not sound like much of a morning routine, but I think for me, like, a lot of people, they'll fill their mornings with so many tasks and so many things that by the time they get done, it's like, I mean, dude, like, you could have done that like 3 hours of work by now, you know, like, you've just done all these other tasks. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying, for me personally, what's really helped me move the needle is like, I get so much done in such a short amount of time. I'm very efficient. And so like, what I can get done in 8 hours is what some people, you know, won't get done all day. And I've just done that by, okay, like, I'm going to get up, I have all my stuff written out, and I just go boom, 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 boom. And it's just like a checklist for me. And so I'm not saying that's the best way to do it. That's just kind of what I've done.
So do you plan your day, all your tasks then? Do you plan them the day before, or how do you plan that?
I try to, yeah. Like, I try to write it down before I go to bed, and I do the most important stuff first, and then the, you know, smaller stuff later. I'm actually you're going to laugh probably, but I'm in the process of hiring my first ever executive assistant, which is crazy. And my team is like, dude, you should have had this like, you know, years ago. But they're like, dude, you need like someone to take, like, kind of plan your day, because you're trying to just continually do too much. And I can get it done, but they're like, I mean, you're working, you know, if you're doing 16 hours a day, you got an executive assistant, we can cut some of that off and stuff. So I do try to at least just bullet point out what I have. And then when I get this executive assistant, my goal is that he can take those bullet points and kind of put them in slots, so I'm even more efficient. So I just look at my calendar and it's like, you know, all in front of me, and I can bang it out even, you know, faster, I guess.
So you don't still work 16-hour days now though, do you?
Some days I do. I will say this, I don't have to. I came to a realization that I realize I do enjoy work. And I think I just get fulfillment from growth and trying to push myself and be the best I can be. So don't get me wrong. Like, you know, my girlfriend's constantly trying to balance me out. She wants, you know, hey, let's go on some dates, let's go to dinner. But there's only so much of that I can do until I'm like, okay, like, you know, what's my mission, or what do I feel like my purpose is? And I feel the most alive when I'm trying to grow and build businesses and try to push myself. You know, because like, you know, you can only party so much until it's like, okay, like, you know, what else are we going to do besides this? So I don't do it every day. But there are days, well, you know, I'll get up at 4:30 and I'll go to bed at, you know, 9 or 10, and, you know, I'm cool with it. You know, it's like, I enjoy it, but it's definitely a choice at this point. When I started, I didn't feel like I had a choice. I felt like I must do or die, you know, it was like death. So.
Yeah. Okay, so what are you focusing on for the rest of this year?
Yeah, I have a lot of portfolio companies now, and so those are either some of my top clients or just people I feel have CEO potential, and I'm really trying to kind of grow that. And I think over the next year and a half, my goal is to step out of my business, not where I'm the owner, but where I'm the face, and bring someone else in, kind of go to the next level. I think that's the next step for me, is to become kind of an owner / investor versus the CEO. And so I'm pretty scared because I think I sometimes get a little micromanaging, but I know that's kind of the next goal. So that's kind of where we're at, is like kind of replacing me, making sure the whole business is just like systematized fully, and basically where it's sellable at the highest value. I'm not saying I will sell, but I'd like it to be at a point where someone comes in and they're like, so Tanner, like, how involved are you? And I'm like, 0. So that it could sell at the highest value. And that to me is kind of like just the next stage for me. I'm not saying that's for anyone else, but it gets me excited. And that's what I feel like is the next step for me. So.
All right. Okay. Fantastic. So I got one last question for you.
Yeah.
If you were going to be an animal for 24 hours, what would you be and why?
Oh man, I'll say a white tiger, and I wish I had a better answer. I just think they look cool, and they're super big and powerful, and that's just always been like my favorite animal. Because I remember going to the zoo, and I would see tigers and lions, but then I saw a white tiger, and I just thought it was so much cooler than the other ones. So, outside of that, if it wasn't going to be that, it'd probably be like some type of bird, just so I could fly. But I've always said white tiger is like my favorite animal.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you so much for chatting with me today. It's been awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. You kept me busy. I love to talk, and so this is.
So if anybody wants to find out more about what you do, where do they need to go?
Yeah, you just go to my social media, or you can go to eliteCEOs.com. That's kind of our main website, and you can like read up on our clients and customers and what we do. But those are probably the 2 best places.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you for listening. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe to the podcast on your podcast software. It really helps us rank the podcast and get more listeners. And if you're over on YouTube, please subscribe and hit the bell. Every Friday, 8 a.m. GMT, we release a brand new episode. And until then, have a good one.